Well, today was certainly a very interesting day. Um, I don't, I don't quite know what to say at this point. I'm torn on whether I should sort of address this from a pessimistic or an optimistic viewpoint. But I guess I'll just go out and say that I think that this pseudo hearing in Pennsylvania that was held today by some Pennsylvania state senators featuring the Trump campaign was an effective uh, sort of court of public opinion tool. The reason why I'm kind of torn in addressing this is that they were billing it as a hearing, and it wasn't officially a hearing because it wasn't before the Pennsylvania legislature. Neither the House nor the Senate took this up. These were, so I kind of, it felt kind of scummy for them to call it a hearing because I don't think it was in any legal sense. And what that says to me is that they don't have the sort of the whole of the Pennsylvania legislature. The Republicans there, the Republican leadership is not necessarily on their side. That's kind of what this says to me. But with that said, what was actually presented at the hearing, so-called hearing, I think was very constructive. It was exactly, I think, what the Trump campaign has been needing to do for weeks now. People ask them, hey, you've made these claims, now you need to, start presenting evidence, making your case publicly, and they say, well, we're going to wait till we do that in court. And while there is, some positive developments that I'll get to later on that, people publicly, the regular Americans need to hear what the campaign has to say, what their case is. They need to hear from these witnesses firsthand, and I'm glad that they were able to get so many credible witnesses to come forward and to speak about this publicly, in a public setting, on the record, because hearing these things directly from people who witnessed these events go down, I think that it's much more effective than just reading it on paper in an affidavit or reading it in a tweet or something like that, or hearing someone else talk about, what is written. This is, it's a much more direct connection. These people can directly make the case to the American people that there was more than enough impropriety and irregularity in this election to put the results into question. And that, of course, is the case that needs to be made. It's a very simple one. Were there irregularities with this election? And if so, which I think is obvious, there's always a certain level of impropriety with American elections. That's kind of the nature of just having an election of, with 320 million people. They're very big. There's a lot to go wrong. But given that, then can you make the case that there was enough of it to change the results? And the answer to that, again, is very much yes. In multiple states, but today they were making the case in Pennsylvania. And again, it was rooted largely with the observers. And the thing about the observers, that's not going away. That's a Pennsylvania judge decided to, or a judge in Pennsylvania, I think it might have been a federal judge, decided to just sort of dismiss this case and say that there was absolutely nothing wrong with the way the observers were treated, because, it says there have to be observers present, but it doesn't say they have to be, close enough to read it. It doesn't say that the observers have to actually be able to see the ballot. Oh my God, like these the election officials were clearly following, the letter of the law, which is total nonsense. That is a totally corrupt judge that makes that kind of ruling. And so the way that the judiciary is going to be held, accountable is, I think, in part through public pressure, not through harassing them the way that Democrats harassed those Wayne County Canvassing Board officials. That's not what I'm saying at all. But these judges need to see that, public opinion is not so overwhelmingly in favor of a Biden victory that they can get away with covering up obvious violations of the law. With the Trump campaign making their case publicly, in Pennsylvania, and apparently we're hearing they're going to do very similar events in multiple states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. This is helping them because it contextualizes the dismissal of their cases. When one of their cases gets dismissed, it's easy for someone who has no other knowledge to just say, oh well, a judge dismissed it. I guess that they had no case, and that that was justified. But if you're putting this information out there into the public domain where people can see what happened, they hear from the witnesses what they experienced, the way this election was run. When they learn that, all of a sudden these dismissals don't jive in their brain. It doesn't all of a sudden make sense that a judge would dismiss a case when you hear about all these very serious concerns. People then will start to realize that, oh wait, the judge didn't dismiss the case because the Trump campaign had no legitimate case. These judges, in whatever case it may be, probably dismissed that case because they're a hack. This is why it's so important for the Trump campaign to make their case publicly as well as in court. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand this logic that they've been saying about how, they don't want to present their evidence in public before they have a chance to do it in court because the judge will get mad or whatever. And frankly, what does it matter if the judge gets mad if they're just going to dismiss your case anyway and try and make a fool of you? And maybe that's what this is. Maybe the Trump legal team is fed up with not getting a fair shake in front of these judges and saying, you know what, why are we going to try and play things like Boy Scouts if the judges are not going to give us a fair hearing? We'll just have our own public hearing. And even if they can't get a public hearing in the legislature itself, they'll at least have people from the legislature doing so and being present, sort of holding a quasi-hearing. But ideally, these hearings would actually be on the floor of the Pennsylvania Senate or the whatever various state legislative chamber in whatever state. Now on to some good legal news. Finally, a judge in Nevada has granted the Trump campaign an evidentiary hearing, which is going to take place on December 3rd. Part of the reason why we haven't heard the Trump campaign formally make any case is because so far, to my knowledge, there has been no case that the Trump campaign has filed in which they have been allowed to get so far as to present evidence to the judge. The judges have just dismissed the cases offhand. As soon as they file them, they say, nope, dismissed. We're not even going to hear, we're not even going to give you a hearing on what evidence you have to make your case. And the Trump folks are hyping up this December 3rd Nevada hearing, and they are saying that they're going to present evidence of voter fraud in Nevada that certainly would overturn the election. Now, that to me is, Nevada is low-hanging fruit. You should, even in a normal election, be able to find, evidence of voter fraud in Nevada. I mean, it's a mafia state. It's home to Vegas. I mean, Nevada's a screwed up place. And so that should be the easiest place to find fraud, I would think. And so that'll be a good starting point for them. If they can, make the case and definitively show that, whatever went on here in Nevada was total fraud. Now, another lawsuit, Sean Parnell and Mike Kelly. They, in Pennsylvania, have a lawsuit over the constitutionality of mail-in ballots, and the judge in their case issued what's the exact term? Well, basically the judge blocked the Pennsylvania legislature from doing anything more to certify the results of the presidential election, or of any elections, I think. So I don't know if that means, because technically the results are already certified, I don't know if that means that they're just referring to the election itself, or if they mean we can't do anything more, to certify, as in like certifying electors to the Electoral College. So it's unclear to me what exactly that means, but obviously, it is a positive to some extent. It's just a matter of is it positive in a meaningful sense? And then today you had Phil Klein announce he's got 2 lawsuits in Wisconsin and Georgia over what he is experts saying are suspected illegal ballots, which are in the 6-figure range in both. I think 100,000 or so in Wisconsin and like 200,000 in Georgia. And as Robert Barnes has been pointing out, the Georgia election should be very easy to overturn those results if you apply even a modicum of signature verification. This idea that only 0.1% of the signatures didn't match and were thrown out, you're just not checking that. Signatures do not match that closely. The government can be very stingy when it comes to signature matching when they want to be. And obviously, they can be as lax as possible in the other direction when they want to be too. And you shouldn't just let them do that, because that's just a very easy way to manipulate the number of votes. If mail-in balloting favored Trump, you would probably see a pretty high rejection rate when it came to the signature match. So even though yesterday, I was talking about what the world looks like with the Biden presidency, I say this almost every day, we're nowhere near having all this be over. Not a single case has made the Supreme Court yet. And obviously, I'll be watching very closely when that happens. But there's so many moving parts now to this whole process. It's hard to keep up. But I stand by what I said over the weekend about I think things are trending in Trump's direction. That's by far from a guarantee that he'll end up winning and pulling this out. But there are things are still very much in play. And when they are making the case publicly, as they did today, that does a lot, I think, to boost morale amongst his supporters. And that in and of itself is meaningful and something that they should strive to do. I am far past, very early on, I was saying that, essentially I didn't know if the election was rigged for Trump or against Trump or not. I had my suspicion, but at this point, there are so many improprieties that throw so many ballots into question in all of these important states. So many more ballots than is the margin of victory for Biden. I have absolutely no doubt that if they get a fair hearing in court, if you have a fair judge, if all of this is adjudicated fairly, that's a big caveat that Joe Biden, will not be able to become the next president of the United States because he simply didn't win. So with that said, if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.